I'm so happy to have you here. I'm Estefania. So today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic that the tariffs imposed by former USA the President Donald Trump. I present to you the team that accompanies me today. They are
Hi, my name is Fernando Noriega, and I will be together with my partner Estefania, the presence of this podcast.
Hi, my name is Manuel, and I am studying business administration. I'm going to give you my opinion on a couple of situations that are happening in the country.
Hi, my name is Caro. I'm studying in the international business and I will be participating in the round of the questions.
Hello, my name is Brian Luna, and I am a public accounting student at the Universidad Autónoma de Querétaro, and I am excited about the podcast.
Hi, my name is Joanna Esmeralda. I'm studying international business and I will be talking and giving my opinion and some questions.
Hi, I'm Wendy Cruz. I'm a second semester student of international business and I'll be answering several interesting questions.
Hi, I'm Jorge Cerezo. I am studying international business and I will be answering some questions.
Hi, my name is Joanna Morales. I am fifth semester of accounting public.
welcome everyone. So let's start.
What was imposed? On February 1st, 2025, Trump signed executive orders to impose an additional 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada. Under the International Emergency Economic Powers, in this case of Mexico, a reduced rate was not set for energy products. It was subsequently established that products that meet that requirements of the treaty between Mexico, the United States, and Canada could be exempt from those additional tariffs. Mexico Business News. In particular, motor bicycles and other goods that do not meet the TECMEC and could be subject to those 25% tariffs.
Well, let's talk about the tariffs are, why Trump decided to use them, and who they really helping or hurt, the United States or the rest of the world. So to discuss this topic, I'm joined by amazing guests, students and future analysts, who will share their opinions about the economic effects of this policy. And I ask you to introduce yourself. And so let's start by remembering the context. Trump came to power in 2017 with the idea of America First. He wanted the project USA Jobs and Industry. He putting taxes on important products. But these actions created trade conflicts with China, Mexico, Canada, and Europe.
When discussing international trade, one of the most relevant events in the recent year was the trade war between the United States and China during Donald Trump's presidency. This conflict had consequences that went far beyond those two nations, influencing global markets and even reaching Mexico. To begin, it is important to understand what tariffs are. Tariffs are taxes that a country applies to imported goods. Trump used this strategy to protect American industries and workers. He argued that China had unfair trade practice and the US companies were losing money because of the cheap Chinese imports. By imposing tariffs, he intended to make Chinese products more expensive in the American market, encouraging people to buy more goods made in the United States. The goal behind these tariffs was to reduce the trade deficit and bring manufacturing jobs back to the US. However, this policy did not only affect the relationship between the United States and China. It generated a series of reactions in the global economy, as many companies began to search for new locations to produce their goods, hoping to avoid the higher costs caused by the tariffs. At this point, it is important to ask, how did this situation impact Mexico? Due to its geographic position, low labor costs, and participation in the USMCA trade agreement, Mexico became a very attractive option to international companies. As a result, several factories were moved from China to Mexico, generating more employment and foreign investment, particularly in the manufacturing and automotive sectors. Nevertheless, not all effects were positive. The trade war created uncertainty and instability in global markets. Some raw materials and components imported by Mexico from Asian countries became more expensive, affecting the national industry that depend on them. Additionally, when major economies like the United States and China face conflicts, smaller economies such as Mexico often feel indirect economic pressure. One interesting outcome was the increase of a strategy known as nearshoring, which means relocating production closer to the main customer's market. In this case, the United States. This phenomenon continues today and has turned Mexico into a key player in regional supply chains. It demonstrates how trade conflicts, despite their challenge, can also create opportunities for growth and modernization. In reflections, the tariff imposed by Donald Trump on China had mixed results. They changed international trade patterns, and some sectors, but also encourage others to expand. For Mexico, this event represents both a challenge and an opportunity, an example of how deeply connected the world economies truly are. It also reminds us that decisions made by global powers can significantly shape the economic future of neighboring nations like Mexico.
That is interesting. So today we are asking, were Trump tariffs really good for the economy? Or did they cause more harm than good? Now let's begin with some questions. The question number one is, what do you think about Trump's decision to use tariffs? Do you see it as a smart economic move or more a political strategy?
I think Trump's decision to impose tariffs was a most political move rather than economic one. American jobs, but in reality, it caused a lot of tension with other countries.
Mm, I think Trump used tariffs more as political strategy than an economic one. Maybe he wanted to protect American companies, but many products become more expensive. For me, I was not very aggressive economy moment because I create problems with other countries and made trade more difficult.
I think decision was political. He wanted to project his country, but is what not for the others.
Okay, I like the informations. So the number two question is, who do you believe was more affect the United States or its trade partners like Mexico, Canada, or China?
Uh, I think both partners was affected, but perhaps trading partners like China and Mexico had more impact on the beginning. Even so, the United States also suffered because many American companies pay more for materials and products. In the end, I think every loss and legal.
The tariffs hurts other countries and also the United States. Every lost sometime.
Well, I believe the tariffs affect both sides, but in different ways. Countries like Mexico, Canada, and China face economic pressure, but the USA also suffered because price increased and exports were hurt.
That's interesting what they just report. And the number three question is, do you think tariffs can really protect a country's economy? Or do they just create more global problems?
Uh, I think I think tariffs can help in some cases, such as creating jobs or local industries, but in the long run, they can create global problems. Price rise. Other countries respond with their of tariffs and international trade weakened. For me, working together is better than closing markets.
These actions do not make the economic stronger because they create more problems. Very countries.
Well, I could say that, in my opinion, these kinds of measures don't really strengthen the national economy in the long term. They might help some industries for a while, but they usually create more international conflicts and trade wars.
Okay, there should be good reflection in your answers. And I, for question for me is, many American farmers lost money because of China's response. Do you think the government did the right thing by helping them with subsidies?
I think subsidizing the agricultural sector was a way to fix a problem that the government created itself. It helped farmers survive, but it also showed that the tariffs were not as effective as a plan.
Their government will be farmers, but it's a loss because farmers were not worried of the mistake.
Yes, I think the government did the right thing, but because farmers were not fully of the traded war, they lost money. to the political decision. The subsidies helped them survive, but I think it's better to have good business relationships than to pay for problems later.
Oh, I really love their answers, so I have one last question. The number 5. Finally, do you think protectionism, putting your country first, is the best way to build a strong economy today?
I believe that protectionism can help a country for a short time, but not forever. Today, economies are global, and we will depend to each other. A strong economy comes from good trade, first rules, and cooperation with other nations. Putting your country first is important, but working with others is also necessary.
Personally, I believe that protectionism doesn't work well in today's globalized world. Free trade encourages cooperation and innovation, while protectionism often leads to higher costs and less stability.
I think free trade is better. The world should work together, not close borders.
Okay, thank you so much, guys, for taking the time answer this question. So now we will have experts on the subject. They will talk about to use a little more about tariffs and their impact.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Global Trade Talk. And I'm your host, Alondra, and today we're diving into a super relevant topic. The tariff the United States has imposed on China and how all this trade tension has impacted Mexico's economy. Let's break it down together with some key questions.
Next, I will continue to ask you some questions on the subject. What are tariffs? And why did the United States impose them China?
Well, tariffs are basically taxes on imported goods. The USA started imposing then or Chinese products in 2018. During the trade war, has a way to reduce its trade deficit on pressure China to change certain trade practice that were seen as unfair, like intellectual property violations and subsidies to local companies.
How have these tariffs affect China's exports to the United States?
They have definitely reduced them. Many USA companies started looking for suppliers outside of China to avoid paying extra cost. This has shifted a lot of manufacturing and trade activities to other countries, including Mexico and Vietnam.
Well, what opportunities have these tariffs from Mexico?
Mexico has become a major alternative for USA. Companies that want to import products without the high tariff. Thanks to the US MCA trade agreement, Mexico offers a stable trade relationship and geographic proximity. This has encouraged nearshoring, meaning companies are moving production closer to the USA.
Have this change benefited the Mexican economy?
Yes, in several ways, there's been an increase in foreign investment, especially in sectors like electronics, auto parts, and machinery. Mexico exports to the USA have grown, and the country even surpassed China as the USA main trading partner in some recent periods.
Are there any risk or challenge for Mexico in these situations?
Well, absolutely. While the opportunities are big, there are also risks. Mexico depends heavily on USA demand, and global supply chains disruptions still affect production. Also, competition with Asian countries remains tough, and Mexico needs to strengthen infrastructure and workforce to keep up. So, to sum it up, USA tariff on China have shaken up global trade, but they have also opened doors for Mexico to take a bigger role on the North American market. The K will be maintaining competitiveness and adapting the changing global economy. But thanks for tuning into Global Trade Talk. Don't forget to subscribe.
The next question talk about trade shifts. How do USA-China tariffs reshaped Mexico role?
Hi everyone, welcome back to Global Trade Talk. I'm Manuel, and today we are going to explore how the trade tensions between the United States and China have changed the global market, and why Mexico has suddenly become a key player in all of this. Let's dive right in with some important questions.
When did the USA-China trade war begin, and what triggered it?
The trade war officially started in 2018 when the United States accused China of unfair trade practice, like forced technology transfers and currency manipulations. The US responded by applying tariff of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, which led China to do the same in return.
How do these tariffs impact global supply chains?
They force companies to rethink where they manufacture and source the products, because importing from China became more expensive. Many firms started moving production to countries with lower tariffs, and Mexico turned out to be one of the best alternatives due to its location and trade agreements.
What specific happened if trade relations between the USA and China improve again?
If the US lowers or removes tariffs, some companies might move production back to China because of its high industrial capacity and lower cost. That's why Mexico needs to take advantage of this current momentum. They solidify its role as reliable manufacturing and trade partner. In short, the US-China tariff has rehapened global trade in unexpected ways. Mexico is gaining ground, but staying competitive will require continuous investment in technology, infrastructure, and education.
Thank you. The next question is, what was the goal of these tariffs?
The main objective was to reduce the USA trade deficit and protect American industries, especially manufacturing and steel. Trump argued that China and others were competing unfairly, taking advantage of free trade.
Well, what were the consequences for international trade?
The impact was huge. China retailed with tariffs of its own, hitting American exports like soybeans and corn. This created a trade war, raising prices in both countries. Many global supply chains were disrupted and companies began shifting production to Southeast Asia or other markets. Globally, it caused economic uncertainty and slowed down world trade.
How did it affect American citizens?
In the short term, prices of many imported goods like electronics, textiles, and cars increased. It affected the average consumer and reduced purchasing power. American farmers were among the hardest hit as China stopped buying their products, forcing the government to subsidize billions in aid.
Was there any real benefit?
Some factories in the USA did restart local production, especially in the steel industry. However, these effects were limited and didn't offset the overall costs. Experts argue that protectionists help a few sectors but hurt consumers and global trade.
What possible solutions could be discussed?
One solution is to reform international trade agreements to make them fairer instead of imposing unilateral tariffs. Another is to strengthen domestic innovation and competitiveness so American companies can compete globally without tariff protection. And finally, promote multilateralism, solving trade disputes through the WTO or regional treaties instead of trade wars. Because tariffs aren't just taxes, they're political tools that can strain diplomatic relations and affect millions of jobs.
I'm back. So what they are saying is very interesting thing, and ask you are listening to reflect on the information. In this tariff war, who was more harmed, the United States or its trading partners?
Yes, the tariff war initiated by Donald Trump, so to protect U.S. economy industry, reduce the trade deficit mainly with China. However, its consequences were more complex than expected, since it cost the U.S. economy about 1.7 million loss or uncreated jobs and reduction of about 0.7% of GDP. This without considering that U.S. economy consumers paid approximately 46 billion additional dollars in tariff. That is, in the United States, tariff made many imported products more expensive, which directly affected consumers and companies that depend on foreign inputs. In addition, farmers were one of the most affected sectors. The government had to grant more than $28 billion in subsidies to compensate them, since China responded with tariff on agricultural products such as soybeans and meat, reducing exports. On the other hand, countries such as China, Mexico, and Canada also suffered economic losses at the beginning, but they know how to adapt. China diversified its markets and strengthened its technology industry, while Mexico and Canada renegotiated the trade agreement with the United States to make and management to maintain their trade relationship stable. Although that the countries involved were affected, the strongest impact fell on the United States, since its consumers and producers were the ones who absorbed the prices increase and economy uncertainty. In the long term, tariffs have shown that protectionism does not always benefit the national economy.
Okay, I really love this information. So would like to know what you, our listeners, did about this important topic. So I thank you so much to the experts and students who helped us report in this. So thank you all for sharing your ideas and opinions. This has been a great discussion and about how one country's decisions can affect the entire world. And remember, in global trade, no national grows while closing its doors. We all depend on each other. Thanks for listening to Trump Tariffs, who really won, and see you next time.